Guten Morgen, Guten Tag. My name is Manaya and welcome back to my channel. You know, if you're not new here, if you've been here, if you're returning, you might be like, what happened to the lights? Well, I want to match the vibe. That's why I'm wearing blue eyeshadow. I don't like to wear eyeshadow. Blue eyeshadow is a mess to get off my eyes, but I wanted to match the vibe, you know? I want to match the vibe of what I'm talking about. Today I'll be doing my first movie review. The funny part is everything's a first on this channel because, well, I've only have 3 videos. Somebody's baby is crying. Let's hope you cannot hear that. Actually, funny story. I was actually originally going to do another video this week. I was supposed to upload it, I think, on Monday. But then as I finished editing like the long ass video, I realized I don't want to do this. So if you haven't been on the internet at all, there's a new movie that came out called Time Cut, which everyone kind of realized when the trailer came out around last month that it follows the same plot line as Totally Killer, a movie that came out last October on Prime. And so that kind of led people to go like, oh my god, did they copy one another? Like, who copied who? Turns out, after a little bit of digging, that Time Cut, weirdly enough, which is actually produced by Netflix, was written and filmed much earlier than Totally Killer. Actually, Time Cut was, according to Wiki, was written and completed filming in 2021. But Totally Killer was announced, so let's just say the writing was completed when it was announced. It was announced in 2022. A year later, so it kind of led people to go like, what's that about? And as far as I know, there's no overlap in crew or cast or writing, so I'm pretty sure it was just a weird coincidence. You know what the weirdest coincidence of that was, though? There's actually a third thing that follows the same plot line as these books. Just general synopsis before I will actually dive into a summary of it, because spoilers, so don't watch if you don't want spoilers. Watch later after you watch the movie, because I will have to spoil it a little to explain my review. But anyways, the general synopsis is Time Cut follows Lucy, who travels back to 2003 to stop the murder of her sister. Totally Killer follows Jamie, who travels back to 1987 to stop murders in the future in her present to stop the murder of her mother, butterfly effect. And there's actually one of my favorite books. I've read it once, but I really like it. I read it in 2022. It came out in 2022 also, called How to Survive Your Murder, which has also eerily a similar plot line, which is a girl named Alice travels only a year prior to stop the murder of her sister, Claire. I'll actually talk more about that book later at the end of this video. I won't spoil it because I think people should read it, but I will give you a little more synopsis. But you know what? Let's get into it so I can talk about my review. Totally Killer. What's Totally Killer about? So Totally Killer follows Jamie, who I think is 16. They don't really specify that, but with context clues, I'm pretty sure she's 16. Raised by her overprotective parents, Pam and Blake, whose friends were killed in 1987 around Halloween by the Sweet 16 killer. That's why I think Jamie's also 16, because Pam mentions that she's the same age as the victims were in 1987. So basically, they're very overprotective over her because she's their only child, and they were like best friends with the victims. And Jamie's kind of like, I've taken self-defense. It's important. Remember that. She's taken self-defense classes. She has pepper spray, like alarm, everything. So her dad, Blake, drives Jamie and her best friend Amelia to a concert, weirdly enough, by the classmate of like her parents. Like, that's very weird. Anyways, so Pam is left alone in the house, and there's a podcast happening about the Sweet 16 killer in the movies, by another classmate of theirs who's not that involved with the situation. Anyways, so Pam is left alone in the house. She's giving candy to trick-or-treaters, and like I said, this is a small town, so the Sweet 16 killer is like a big deal in it. And just like how Ghostface had his iconic mask, the Sweet 16 killer also has a mask that is like recognizable. And because of the podcast happening and everything, people are like wearing the mask, And so somebody in that mask comes to Pam's door, and she's like, "That's not funny." Turns out, after being dormant for many, many years, it's the Sweet 16 killer, and he offs Pam. While, Blake and Jamie are out of the house. And, obviously they're distraught, like, that's Jamie's mom. And her best friend Amelia is creating a creation for the science fair using her mother Lauren's designs. And the idea is a time machine. And when Jamie sees the time machine, she's like, "Why is the date set back to 1987? And Amelia is like, "Well, if this works, then we can go back and we could stop the Sweet 16 killer, then your mom would be alive." And she's like, "That's sweet." Anyways, Chris Dubasage, that's who's running the podcast, had been calling Pam, and that's why they're like, "What's going on there?" And yeah, something to mention is the principal, the gym teacher, and the cop, the sheriff of the town are like also like, "Yeah, guys, the Sweet 16 killer has returned, be careful." I'm only mentioning them because you'll see. Anyways, and so basically the sheriff is like, "Why was this man calling your mom?" And she's like, "Girl, I don't know. I don't keep tabs on my mother." Anyways, so she goes to meet with Chris Dubasage, the podcast guy, and he's kind of like, "There was this note that the Sweet 16 killer gave your mother. It said, 'You'll be next one day.'" And she's like, "Whoa." Jamie, she's like, "Whoa." Anyway, she goes to meet with Amelia at the fairgrounds, abandoned fairgrounds, which is where the science fair is happening for some reason. And it's dark, and they are chased by the Sweet 16 killer. Amelia just kind of stays there going, "Help, help." And it's like, "Girl, this is 2023. Pick up the phone and call 911. What's yelling help, help in an abandoned place gonna do?" While Jamie's being chased and runs into the photo booth, which is kind of like what Amelia's building the time machine in. Kind of campy. I love it. And the Sweet 16 killer stabs the machine, the photo booth, and it works. The time machine works, and she is transported back to 1987, the day of the first murder. And she befriends her mother, as well as her best friend's mother, Lauren, who I said the designs of the time machine are based off of, but she doesn't believe in her designs in the present time, for some reason. But Jamie finds her, and she's like, "My favorite trope of both Time Cut and Totally Killer is for them to convince the other person that they're from like the future. They go like, 'Do you see my iPhone? Look, iPhone. Yeah, we don't have those useless stuff. Look how crazy this is. Ooh." And Lauren and Jamie become friends, and Lauren's like, "Okay, so the time machine, okay, let's get this working." Yeah. And so she befriends Pam, and she finds out the 3 victims of the Sweet 16 killer are actually not just friends of Pam's, they're like in a clique together, like they're best friends. And she also meets her dad, who's played by Luke from Julie and the Phantoms. Closest we're getting to a renewal. So after she tries to stop the first girl's murder, even though she fails, she just kind of changes where she dies. Because she was so active in it, she befriends her mother, Pam, and she's like, "I'm a psychic." And she kind of just tries to prevent the murder actively being in this group, and like trying to solve it too. She doesn't prevent them, but she does change the order of things. And while she's like in 1987, she actually obviously meets a bunch of people. And one of my favorite things about Totally Killer is every time she meets people, you kind of see like their present counterpart. She remembers who they are in the present time. Like one of the people in the group, actually two of the people in the group, one of them is Randy. He's this like meathead jock, and he's actually the gym teacher in the present time. And the other person, who's the sheriff's daughter, who's like very into, is actually the sheriff in the present time. And there's this guy in there that's not really integrated into this group because he's dorky and they're popular. So he's Doug, and turns out Doug is actually the one that was committing the murders. He was doing it because, I don't know how much of this I can say, but basically not Pam. Pam was not friends with him at this time because of a fight. But the summer before, the three girls, Pam's best friends, had caused the death of Doug's girlfriend. And so he'd taken revenge. But that's not the plot twist. The gag is that Chris Dubasage, the guy that's making the podcast, actually is the present time Sweet 16 killer. He killed Pam, yeah, because he wanted to get attention for the podcast, because he was like, well, nobody cares about three murders from 1987, but if it's happening again. And he actually, because Amelia in the present time is trying to get Jamie back, so she's building a second time machine, and Jamie actually sent a message from the photos that were taken at the first party during the murder. And that's something I really like about Totally Killer, is they're still connected to the present time. There's no like, oh my god, I wonder what this is doing to the present time. It's a little more clear. Like she'll send like a message being like, stop the machine, to Amelia from the crime scene photos, and that gets transferred. Or the podcast, for example, Chris is like, I said she died in the garage, but she died in the bedroom. Like, what? You see a much more clear like effect, cause and effect. And anyways, so the second killer, the new Sweet 16 killer, was Chris Dubasage, who is like, now that I can time travel, I can be anywhere, anytime. And Jamie's like, yeah, no, let's ixnay that, and kills him, as she should. And when she returns home, because Lauren was successful in the past at building the time machine, in the present she's now successful bioengineer. And because she got her parents together early, she has a brother named Jamie. Her new name is Colette, but other than that, there's no really remaining effects. There's a new principal now. It's the gym teacher. The sheriff's more chill, but there's no like too much difference, and I like that. It's very campy. I like that. Here, the day before Halloween, Netflix released Time Cut, which ironically, even though it's supposed to be a Halloween movie, it does not happen on Halloween. The whole plot happens on April 18th, 16th to 18th. My birthday is April 18th, so I felt seen. I was like, whoa. Anyways, it follows Lucy, who's I think 16 to 17 also, but they don't clarify that. And unlike the moniker of the first movie's killer, I could not tell you. The moniker of this movie's killer is the Sweetly Slasher? Sweetly because the city they're in. Anyways, so Lucy lost her sister in 2003, April 18, 2003. Her sister Summerfield was the last victim of the Sweetly Slasher. But Lucy was actually born after her sister died, because her parents were so distraught about Summer that they were like, we have to do IVF, we have to get her. Anyway, so her whole life has kind of been overshadowed by her sister's death. Like, her parents are miserable. This town is like very run down, like businesses are closed. which is a very interesting start from Totally Killer, because the murders were more like a funny gag. I don't know how else to describe it. Like I said, they did a podcast on it, but like the town wasn't that affected. And so when they're at the memorial of her sister at the place she was killed, the barn, she goes to the car to get something for her sister, and in the barn she sees some light happening, and she goes in, and turns out there's a time machine. That awkward moment when you just find a time machine that transports her back to April 16, 2003, the day of the first murder. The Sweetly slasher, they describe one in a 3-day spree and killed 4 people, 2 at once, one the second day, and then Summer. They don't say this in Totally Killer, but I'm pretty sure that's the same amount there too, because it was Halloween, the day before Halloween, and actually, I don't even know if it was Halloween on... Yeah, no, it was Halloween on the last one, I'm pretty sure too. But it's also a 3-day spree. Anyway, so she gets transported back to April 16th, 2003, and she meets Quinn. You know, conveniently, there's an astrophysicist genius, and she's like, look at my phone, I'm from the future, look at my phone. And, you know, she saves him from bullying and goes, look at my phone. And is like, I'm from the future. Let's go get the time machine that's still in the barn and fix it so I can go back. And so she's kind of also like, when she's befriending him, she's like, should I try to stop up these murders? And he's like, no, butterfly effect and all that. And she befriends Summer, her sister. And because she befriends Summer and offers to help her with her homework, she meets her parents. But I'm going to refer to them as Summer's parents because, like, Lucy's parents are really boring and very annoying. No offense. I know they're in grief, but come on. You had a child out of grief, and that's kind of on you at that point. Go get therapy. Like, you had 18 years to not treat this child in the shadow of your lost child. But, yeah, I'm going to refer to them as Summer's parents. And she meets Summer's parents, and they're very nice. Lucy gets into a NASA internship in the beginning of the movie, and when she tells her parents, they're kind of like, oh. But when she tells Summer's parents, they're like, oh my god, that's so exciting. Like, anyways, so she actually goes to Summer's house, not to befriend Summer, but she needs her dad's key card for this nuclear facility research in the small town that her dad works at, because they need a canister from it for the time machine to work. One thing about Time Cut is it's not a comedy slasher like Totally Killer. It's supposed to be science fiction slasher, so they try to use a lot more science for the movie. It's very off-putting actually. Anyways, so she befriends Summer. Summer gives her a makeover. And she's like, if you knew something bad was going to happen, would you try to stop it? And Summer's like, well, yeah, of course. Who wouldn't? And so she's like, okay, I have to go to the mall and stop the murder of your 2 friends. She doesn't phrase it like that, but that's basically what it is. And she tries, but she fails very miserably. In fact, instead of 2 victims, Summer's 2 best friends who are dating, there's now a 3rd victim, a mall guard. And she's like, whoops, that's on me. And then she tells Quinn, who's like very much in love with Summer, by the way. He's like, we gotta stop this. We gotta stop these murders. And so she convinces Summer, because she gets caught the next day when she tries to get the key card again. And she's like, I'm from the future, I'm your sister. And she gives her a letter that she found in Summer's room in the present time that Summer receives that exact same day. And she's like, oh my god, wait, whoa, I guess you are from the future and my sister. And it's like, girl, show her the phone instead, come on. Anyways, and she's like, the next victim is your friend that you just fell out with. Plot twist, it's not Summer's friend, it's Summer's secret girlfriend. It's very much a Emily and Maya situation. And they save Emmy, Summer's secret girlfriend, and then Lucy's like, Quinn, the next victim is Summer. And she tells Summer too, like, you're gonna die. And it's like this dilemma for Lucy, because if she asked Summer's parents, like, if would you have another kid, and it kind of makes her realize that if Summer lives, she's not going to be born, but if Summer dies, she's dead. Well, and after a little bit of dilemma, moral searching, she's like, okay, let's go get the air canister and stop this murder. Ugh. Anyways, they go to this facility, get the canister, and they realize that the killer is also a time traveler, because there's another canister that was just stolen, like glass on the floor and everything. So they go to rescue Summer, and during that rescue, the killer's mask comes off, and they find out that it's Quinn. But Quinn from the future. This part was a little confusing, and I'll explain why. Anyway, so they get back to Quinn's garage to fix the time machine, and Killer Quinn shows up, and he's like, oh my god, I did this because Summer rejected me and I was bullied. Oh no. And so I didn't completely understand this, and I had to look this up. From what I understand, there was timeline A. I'm using Flash terms. I watched The Flash a lot, so that's the only way that I understood this. Is there was the original timeline, which was where Quinn was bullied and rejected by Summer. So he creates the time machine, the one that Lucy found, to travel back to 2003 and kill Summer and her friends, which created the second timeline. So in the original timeline that he's from, Summer did not die, but that means Lucy doesn't exist. In the second timeline, which is the one Lucy's from, Summer died, but she exists. And then Lucy kind of gets the time machine working and jumps through with future Quinn and kills him, which is timeline 3, which is one where Lucy doesn't exist because Summer lived, but Summer's friends are dead, but now so's the killer, who's Quinn from the first timeline's future. And she talks about it like she went to find her parents, but they didn't know who she was. So she just comes back to 2003 and she's like, I'm gonna live here now, guys. Yeah. And that's the movie. If I sounded disinterested while talking about that summary, I was. Anyways, let's actually get into the review part of this. I think while both movies had very similar like plot lines, only one of them managed to make it work for them. Like, I know Time Cut wasn't a comedy movie. It was marketed as a science fiction / horror. I just feel like it did a bad job on both, and then at some points it did attempt comedy and it failed again. One of the biggest problems with Time Cut, in contrast to Totally Killer, is its investment in the present as much as the past. With Totally Killer, we get a glimpse continuously throughout the movie. It's kind of intertwined with one another. An investment in Jamie's life, the present as well as the past. Like, there's not one point during Totally Killer where you're like, she's gonna stay in the past. You know, with time travel stuff, you're kind of like, oh, maybe they'll stay. There's none of that in Totally Killer, because besides the fact that then she'd be living with her parents like as teenagers, it's also like she has a life in like the present. Like, literally when she disappears, and I was thinking about this, that what does happen to those people before the timeline is altered, like in the current present, when the person they love has disappeared through the time machine? Like, what are they thinking? And you get that with Totally Killer. Like, see the present also through Amelia, Jamie's best friend, who's like trying to fix the time machine and get her back. There's very much investment in the storylines in the present, because there are people that actively want her back. There's a life for her to return to. What she's doing is, I mean, it was an accident that she traveled, but you know, she's not like, well, now I gotta go get back home. She's like, no, I gotta fix this stuff, you know, spend time with my mother to make sure she lives. With Lucy in Time Cut, there's no investment. I literally don't know anything about her present time besides the fact that her parents suck. Like, she has no friends. The only friendship she has is with her science teacher, which is very weird. And it doesn't even come up. After like the first 5 minutes of the movie, he disappears too. Like, what happened? What was that about? In Time Cut, I did not care if she returned or not. It's very weird. I'm someone who, back in middle school, don't judge, I used to watch Hallmark movies every time it turned December, or just even November, honestly. My family, we would just turn on the Hallmark channel and it would be on constantly. And I would get way too invested in Now We're 30 into the lives of boring, basic, generic characters. So do you know how difficult it is for me to not care about Lucy or any character in this movie? Do you understand how difficult it is? I don't care. Could not care less. Like, what am I supposed to care about? There's not even like a little moment where I'm like, oh, maybe she will go back to the present. I'm just like, no, her dumbass is going to stay in the past. I just know it. Because how could she go back to the present? She has nothing. She has no friends, no parents that love her. Switching butterfly effect or not, nobody loves her, nobody misses her. Why would she go back to the past? Or the present? Nobody cares. Another thing that bothered me, plot holes. Honestly, if you've seen Totally Killer, you know it's very like campy in nature, and it's probably because it's a comedy, but it's just very campy in nature, and a lot of it's like what could be potential plot holes are very easily explained. Like, one person might be asking, hold on, how did these people just accept that Jamie's just at the school? And nobody's like questioning, nobody's questioning her existence at the school. And they literally went, it's the 80s, nobody cares. They said pre-2001, nobody cares, nobody's looking that hard. Explained easily. Even Jamie's, like, it's a little tongue-in-cheek joke. They're like, oh, they don't really care, they're just giving us this information. Okay, sure. But with Time Cut in 2003, mind you, technology very much exists also, nobody's questioning this girl's existence at the school. She's just attending the school and nobody's asking, why are you in my class? With everybody else, they were like, oh, new kid. Okay, yeah, we're not double checking nothing. No, they were just like, in Time Cut, where it's 2003 and more like strict, especially because it's only been 2 years. Nobody's checking. Nobody's thinking like, who is this new student we have no information of? To be fair, it wouldn't have even mattered. She's barely at that school anyways. It's very, very weird. Literally, all her storyline is revolved around Summer and Quinn. She's barely at that school. I could not have told you it's only been 3 days if I didn't see the lights change. It's just very weird. Like, I could not care. Like, I don't care. I think one of Totally Killer saving graces was the fact that it would not take itself too seriously. It was very unserious in nature, but yet, honestly, even though it was supposed to be unserious, it explained a lot more plot holes than a movie such as Time Cut that was supposed to take itself seriously did. Nobody cares about Lucy. Something that bothers me, like, I know she was not gonna go back to the present. Like I said, her parents don't love her, but she's staying in the past, to be with her sister. Where is she staying? Matter of fact, where was she staying for the past 3 nights? Just with Quinn? Where is she gonna stay now that she's decided to stay in, the past? She's not gonna stay with her parents. Her parents are not gonna be like, yes, random child that we met 2 days ago, please live with us. Nobody's questioning why. Like, with Jamie only needed a fake identity for 3 days while she was in 1987. Like, she just said, oh, I'm from Canada. Nobody's looking that hard. Technology sucks, what technology? They didn't have one in the 80s, Nobody cared. Nobody was going to look that hard, especially for a student that was there for 3 days. But Lucy has now essentially decided to live in 2003. She's gonna need an identity longer than the 3 days she was there, right? So how does she just have a place to live, a proper identity, because she also applies for the 2003 NASA internship, and it's like to get accepted into college or internships, you're gonna need an identity, and it kind of seems like she's using Summer's room, so I'm supposed to believe that Summer's parents just were randomly like, yes, come in, stranger, and live with us now. What does that even mean? What? Very, very dumb. And oh god, it was just so stupid. It didn't even make sense. Like, what does that even mean? What? She's just living with them? And another thing that bothered me, and this was definitely a smaller one, not to get too hung up on it, Jamie continuously does change clothes throughout Totally Killer, because I'm guessing, I'm under the impression, since it's 80s and nobody actually cares about their safety in this movie, as they have stereotyped in the movie, she's staying with Lauren, or, well, no, she's not staying with Pam. I'm pretty sure she's staying with Lauren, because we see her get picked up by Teresa, who's another friend / victim of the group. She gets picked up, I'm pretty sure, from Lauren's house, and she's probably staying with her because that's her friend, the only one that knows she time traveled. And she even mentions borrowing clothes from Lauren, so I'm just gonna take a guess, because her hairstyle also changes a little bit, that she actually, gets clothes from Lauren and does take a shower. Lucy just has the same haircut the whole time, and there are just times where, like, Summer will give her a t-shirt and immediately you'll see Lucy not change out of that t-shirt until she's given another t-shirt. She kind of walks around this movie like she's an episode character. Like, this is a movie that's written by Episode Interactive, and she's run out of gems halfway through. Like, if anything, that's actually how I would describe it. It kind of feels like Jamie is one of those episode stories that were written by peoples of the community, so it's free and there's only good choices, you know what I mean? And it's like fun to watch, and like there's no plot holes. While with Time Cut, it just feels like somebody wrote an episode story and we're Lucy, and Lucy got no gems. I mentioned the plot holes. Let's get to the finale of it. The plot twist. Both movies had a plot twist, obviously. Doug was not a plot twist of Totally Killer. I saw that coming because he was just not integrated at all to the plot line, but he kept showing up. You know what I mean? He just kept showing up to the point you were like, yeah, it's probably him. I know he's the principal in the future, but he like is not interacting with anyone. He'll interact with Jamie like twice, and it's like, why? You're not friends with anyone she's talking to, you know what I mean? So it kind of was like, yeah, no, he's definitely the killer. This random guy that, yeah, he probably is. And the actual plot twist was probably Chris, because, it kind of had you wonder, like, why is Chris so involved in the present timeline? Like, why is he so involved with this time travel stuff? Like, I get it, like, that's interesting for him, but like there's no way he was gonna put that in the podcast, like, oh, time, like, he was not gonna, who would listen to that? That would be so stupid. That'd be like if I told you, like, I actually time traveled to the 90s, and like, you wouldn't believe it. So it kind of had you wonder, like, why was he so involved? Honestly, when I was first watching Totally Killer when it came out last year, I did think it was Chris for a good while, and then I was like, but then why would he help? It was like very like confusing. So it was a very nicely well done plot twist that it was like, oh my god, yeah, it is him. He's not that helpful. Why would he be helping? Yeah. With Time Cut, I might be a little biased because I think I did have it spoiled to me, but then at the same time, I barely understood the movie when I watched it. Quinn's reveal was obvious, but it was also stupid. With like, there's a scene in the first 2 minutes of the movie, because the movie starts with Summer's death, and literally when she goes into this barn that's having a party after these people died, he like tries to give her this letter. He's like, this is for you, and like I said, he's like very in love with Summer, so it's like very obvious it's a love letter, but she doesn't take it because she's distracted by her ex-boyfriend she just dumped, who has been bullying Quinn. And so for a good like few seconds you're like, it's probably him, but then you kind of get confused because you were like, oh, but no, he's hanging out with Lucy a little too much. The movie confused me so bad that I was like, I didn't even think about like who did make that time machine that Lucy got into. The plot twist was so dumb because honestly I didn't even realize. So basically when his mask falls off and you're like, oh, that's Quinn. The problem is, I just thought it was like, okay, wait, I get it. It's a time travel. this is Quinn, but if Quinn hadn't been stopped from being thrown in the river by the bullies and had befriended Lucy, so he would have been burned. I don't know. That whole time I was like, there's something wrong with his face, and I was like, oh, maybe he got burned? Maybe like the river had bacteria and his face went. Turns out, this Quinn, like I said, I explained it, the Quinn is from the future, la la la. One thing that Totally Killer did that was amazingly done was, like I said, they continuously, like every time you meet a new person in the past, because Jamie knows them, you get like a cut to the present time when they're adults. Totally Killer used that Prime money to, make sure you were clear on who was who. Like Olivia Holt was Pam when she was young, but Julie Bowen was Pam when she was an adult. Time Cut did not do that at all. I mean, at first I was like, why would they do that? Because they didn't even try to age Lucy's parents in those 20 years, but whatever. I just didn't care because her parents are the only people that you see in the past and the present, so it was like, whatever. But the Quinn thing would have made so much more sense if he looked old. When you try to sell the same actor as 16 as well as 40, it doesn't work. Totally Killer was not trying to be as campy as possible by changing the actors in the past and the present. They weren't trying to be like, ooh, look, it's so campy. Ooh, it's so serious. No, they were trying to sell a story. There's a reason why they were recasted, because there had been significant time. The only time you can sell an actor playing two different versions of their character with a time difference is 5 years flash forward. Once you go past that, baby, you got to change the actor. And when you go past 2 decades, change the damn actor. This movie was filmed in 2021. We were very much past the quarantine. The pandemic was still like a high alert, but it wasn't like this crazy. You could have gotten another actor. And this is a Netflix movie. You had a budget. Netflix movies have a good budget, and it actually like infuriates me when people don't use that budget. Oh god, it was so infuriating being like, what? I'm supposed to believe that's 40-year-old? Like, he hasn't changed at all. His face got a little tight because he got old, but otherwise he looks the exact same. He's the same height. What? And I get it. The idea was supposed to be that people could easily recognize. Girl, how was I supposed to know that? I thought he got into a motorboat accident under the sea, and that's why his face looked a little tight. I thought he got Botox and it went wrong. I thought maybe there was some bacteria in the river that like affected his face. How was I supposed to know he's 40? And then when he comes into the garage to confront them, it sounds like, you know how Ghostface had that little like thing he was talking? It sounds like he swallowed that by accident, and now that's his voice. Stupid. It was very like underwhelming. It was actually awful. And you know what the gag is? Because I said this. I was like, it's not supposed to be a comedy movie. Good. Nobody was laughing. It's not supposed to be a comedy movie, so it's supposed to be a little more serious. It's supposed to be like, oh, science fiction. That's why our time machine is not a photo booth. We're not saying Wi-Fi is actually what. Yeah, that Totally Killer's explanation for the time machine working was they were like, it was actually Wi-Fi that, well, I said the knife was the conductor, but the original, like when Amelia's making the photo booth time machine, she says Wi-Fi is a big help, and they go like, yeah, Wi-Fi, that makes sense. Very, you know, on serious, very campy. While Time Cut was trying to be like, oh, we're gonna use science, that's how this time, girl, that made no sense. What? And also, how did Quinn get into this facility? Am I supposed to believe he works at this facility now? Why? Also, So the idea is future Quinn, who got bullied and rejected, he spent years being like, oh God, I gotta get back to 2003 and commit these crimes. Like I said, Summer's gay, and the presumption is that if she had lived to 2024, because we don't know what happened, or 2024, she would have been out and about. She would have been out and a lesbian. That's the presumption that we're going with. So you're telling me he knew, like, he either knew she was gay and took that personally upon him. He was like, that's an infliction upon me. Or he didn't know. And also, the whole idea that he was, like, bullied and he was like, I gotta take revenge. Oh, I gotta. Why would his first thought be, let me take revenge upon this girl that rejected me? Her ex-boyfriend was one of the main bullies that were trying to throw him in the river knowing he can't swim. And he didn't even get killed. That's what bothered me about it, the reveal too. Val, who is Summer's best friend, and Brian, who's also Summer's friend. But Brian is also Ethan, the main bully, and also Summer's ex-boyfriend, like best friend, who was also there actively bullying Quinn. So that one, I guess, like Brian because he was a bully and Val because she was there. But then why kill Summer's secret girlfriend? That's just homophobic. What? She didn't even do anything to him. That girl was minding her own damn business for the first 2 scenes we saw before her, like, death streaks. What would have been the reason to try to, like, it didn't even make sense. You're like, what? Totally killer. I love how you can hear my bed squeak. But totally killer. Doug wanting to go after Marissa, Teresa, and I forgot her name. I'm gonna say Quinn because I'm pretty sure that was her name in Scream 6. Him wanting to go after those 3 made a lot of sense because Pam wasn't there at the sleepover that, his girlfriend died at. She was not responsible for that event. She was not even there. She was not included. So obviously he would only go after the 3 girls that, did the crime. And he honestly, when you think about it too, he didn't even like attack the other people in this group, like Randy or the sheriff's daughter. He only attacked them or Jamie or Blake or honestly Pam if they attacked first. Kind of just goes like, yeah, he had a set plan of who he's gonna, like, off because of what they were, like, it was a clear revenge plan. Quinn didn't even make sense. Why not go after your bullies? Why Summer? Why Emmy? What? Somebody wrote that movie and did not think it through. It just, oh God. I feel like the only reason he wanted to kill Summer's girlfriend was because the writers were trying to be like, make the girlfriend and Summer be like, oh my God, wait, I do love you. Oh, I can't live with it. Otherwise, it made no sense. Why would she be even on the list before the boyfriend that actually bullied Quinn? What? It's so stupid, it's insulting that I watched it. I usually try to be really, really nice when it comes to, like, when I'm talking about movie reviews, even to my friends, but this movie, like, fully infuriated me, and I feel like the more I talk about it, the more infuriated I get with, like, the plot holes. I'm like, you wrote this, you had this in the bank for years, and then you were like, yeah, no, this sounds about right. No. Promised. Let me actually give you guys a recommendation if you actually like the plot lines in Time Cut and Totally Killer, at least what the synopsis gave. One of my, like, favorites, I have to reread it actually to see if it holds up 2 years later, but one of my favorite books that I've read is called How to Survive Your Murder. It actually has a similar plot line, and I'm not going to spoil that one because I do want you to read it. It follows Alice, who a year prior on Halloween lost her sister to this guy who's now in the present time, a year later, is being convicted. It's going to be his trial soon. And basically, in this her sister was not the only victim. There was another person who only got an arm cut off, and 2 people who were next on his list because they find his, like, manifesto. And the book actually follows Alice as she travels back a year prior to the night her sister was murdered. or well, the day, you know, the whole day. And she tries to stop it, and it's actually very interesting. I like it very much. And one of my favorite parts about it that I didn't realize I loved so much until I watched Time Cut was this might be a minor spoiler, there's no like time machine nonsense. No, none of that. So if you're like, I like the synopsis of somebody time traveling back into it, well, read How to Survive a Murder. It's really good. And honestly, as a horror element, much better. The slasher element is so much better in How to Survive Your Murder than Time Cut. And if you liked what Time Cut tried to sell you up on the sibling relationship, read How to Survive Your Murder, because Time Cut tried to create a bond that didn't exist between two sisters who had never met, while with How to Survive Your Murder, it's very emotional because obviously Alice has met her sister. They grew up together. It's a lot more emotional. I like it so much. I'm like trying to fully sell it. I love books. Obviously, I started this channel with Pretty Liars books. I might actually, if you guys are interested in that, I might make like a full spoiler version of How to Survive Your Murder. I don't think it's like the most perfect book, but I think it's a really, really good book. Like, I want to reread it. If you don't know, we just finished reading the first 4 books of the Pretty Liars series. Pretty Liars, Flawless, Unbelievable, and Perfect. I hope that was the correct order. The way I can't remember. Oh my god. We have uncovered the first A. Yeah. I painted my nails for the Pretty Liars videos. Not for October. October, my nails were red burgundy. But no, I made them black because I don't own hot pink. And I was like, I think this is as close as you can get. Because I mentioned this when I made the first video, that the first 2 books, or the first 4 books, because it's the first A, I kind of like the first 2 seasons of Pretty Liars. And season 3 is around when this color starts to make a lot more sense. So thank you for watching. I'm so sorry for talking so much on the outro. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking with me. I know it's like very like weird how I do these videos. Thank you for sticking with me as I try to find a schedule for these videos. Thank you for not giving up. It's a mess. It's a 1-person mess, but we're doing it. So thank you for watching. I love you so much. Please tell me about the episode. What did you think? Should I do more movie reviews, or are you like, girl, this was messy, let's keep this as a one-time thing? Thank you. I love you. I want to see you again. Au revoir. Bon voyage.